I'm Zarmeen Hassan from AUSVEG, and on behalf of the vegetable industry, I represent AUSVEG on the Consultative Committee for Emergency Plant Pest, which is a group of industry or impacted industry members, as well as state DPIs and the Federal Department of Agriculture, Water and Environmental Resources. And we are all signatories to what's called the Emergency Plant Pest Response Deed. And the CCEPP, as it's called, essentially decides on how to manage pest and diseases that enter Australia that haven't previously been in the country, or exotics as it's known. And together as industry and state and federal departments, we decide and understand how to respond to exotic incursions. So I'll give you a little bit of a situational update. In October 2020, a grower called New South Wales DPI and informed them of significant leaf miner damage in the area. This grower was based out of Rossmore. And he reported that he had been seeing this damage actually since February 2020, so almost at the start of this year. And given that leaf miners, there are indigenous species of leaf miners as well, he had been trying to manage the damage through his regular management regime, but wasn't able to, and hence contacted New South Wales DPI. On diagnostics, New South Wales DPI found that this was serpentine leaf miner. So the first property that was detected was in Rossmore. And subsequently, there have been, as of yesterday, about 30 properties that have been infected in New South Wales. These include 7 nursery properties, as well as about 19 growers, 2 home gardens, as well as 2 found on roadside weeds. So the pest has been found as far as Orange, which is about more than 200 k's from the first infected property, which was in Rossmore. Subsequently, there have been detections in Queensland as well. There have been 3 detections in the Fassifen Valley in Calbo. All states, including New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, Victoria, and WA and Tasmania, are doing tracing or trace forward to understand how far the pest has spread, especially since especially since there were 7 nurseries involved, and there have been traces seen through seedlings, or seedlings have been sent across the country to other states as well. So all states are currently doing surveillance. The CCEPP, or the Consultative Committee of Emergency Plant Pest, has met multiple times. And given the biology of the pest and the fact that the grower has been seeing this since February 2020, seedlings have been transferred across the country. The CCEPP has essentially declared that serpentine leaf miner is now not technically feasible to eradicate. So the response, which was previously a biosecurity response, will now be moving on to a transition to management. And with state DPIs and industry bodies, we are now looking at assisting industries and growers to manage this pest in the best way possible. And luckily, there's a significant amount of knowledge that is stemming from a project that Horton Innovation funded, what was known as MT16004, and we've got members of that project presenting as well today. So there is a significant amount of knowledge that does exist on serpentine leaf miner. So, as I said, leaf miners exist within Australia as well. But why was this exotic, and why is this different to other serpentine leaf miners? And at the core of it, it's primarily because it is polyphagous. It is recorded over 250 plant species, representing about 50 families, and it pretty much eats through a whole host of crops. So everything from beans to celery, seedlings, as well as melons, and along with that, also a wide range of weed plants. So because the host list is so vast, it is pretty much not feasible to eradicate. And Australia is also the last country where this pest has actually entered. It's primarily dispersed through it's human assisted the dispersal, and dispersed through movement of plant material and soil, and has also been known to survive up to minus 11 degrees. Just quickly to understand whether there are any movement controls. So New South Wales has put in what's called a general biosecurity duty in place. And that essentially means that all growers and nurseries and anybody that moves produce has a duty to ensure that proper biosecurity measures are in place and that the produce is generally clean of any pests of concern. There is currently no movement conditions that have been put in place by Queensland or Victoria or South Australia or Tasmania. Western Australia, on the other hand, 2 days ago, has introduced some movement conditions for all produce, nursery stock, as well as machinery. Now we'll talk about that in a little bit of detail moving forward. So WA has said for any host crops that are moving out of New South Wales or Queensland, and they have also mentioned a list of host crops, which is on their website. There either needs to be a methyl bromide treatment for 2 hours at recommended rates, or there needs to be irradiation of the produce at an absorption dose of 400 gray, or it needs to be treated, inspected, packed, and and it needs to be treated, inspected, packed, and transported in compliance with the following processes. There is also fumigation option that is available, and all of these details are mentioned on their website, and they mention that methyl bromide treatment or irradiation needs to be in line with the recommended treatment by either DOE in case of methyl bromide or Fasans in case of irradiation. Like I said, it's now been deemed not technically feasible to eradicate. So our role along with the state DPIs is to essentially help industry and growers, agronomists to manage this pest. And the levy has been at work, which has been excellent for this incursion, because there was a project known as MT16004, which I've previously mentioned, which has completed as of literally today, and has generated a significant amount of knowledge where we now understand the biology of the pest. There's a whole section on what the host list of the pest is, of serpentine leaf miner. There have also been information packages that have been generated for minor use permits, which have now been submitted to APVMA, and subsequently, I think in the last 2 weeks, about 3 or 4 minor use permits have been approved. Also from this project, there are fact sheets that have been developed as well. And so really the levy has been at work for growers over here. And that's an important message to take away, because, industry as well as DPIs are now working to make sure that growers are well equipped to manage this pest. There have been a host of communication that has been sent out both by AUSVEG and GIA as industry bodies, New South Wales DPI, as well as QDAF. On the 3rd of December, New South Wales held a webinar, which should be up on their website now or soon. We are holding this webinar today, and both the states have been engaging industry very, very closely. And this is really the start of a lot of the engagement work that is being done, because as more surveillance happens, as more monitoring is done by states as well as growers, the situation will evolve, and we will continue to do more engagement around it as well. That's it from me. I'll hand over to Madeline Quirk from AUSVEG, who will be talking about the biology and the impact of the pest.